Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show tonight. It is Thursday evening, which means it's time for yet another Seahawks pregame with Brendan and Brandon. I am Brendan, and that is Brandon. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. We got a little bit of football action going on tonight. Not the most tightest of football games between the Pack and the Lions, but still a fun one to watch. And got our Hawks coming up on Monday night. Grand stage, Brendan. Prime time. Are you ready for some football? So I'm
Yeah,
stoked. Let's
yeah,
get
prime
it.
time. So, we've got this Giants game coming up on Monday night, our only Monday night game of the season, which has obviously pushed everything just a little bit awkwardly. So we only have one practice report this week as opposed to the two we would usually have by now. So we
Mhm.
have less information than we typically do about injuries, but we do have potentially some pretty serious stuff to overcome this week. We'll get into that in a second. First, just a little bit of housekeeping. The Seahawks filled the open roster spot from the Cody Thompson release by promoting John Radigan to the 53 man full time. So we like what he's doing on special teams enough to make sure he's on the team the rest of the year, I guess.
Makes sense. I think too. You saw at the end of the game there with Brendan with Jordan Brooks. That back was he kept touching back to the back and going back to it a couple times at the end of the game. So I do wonder if there's a little bit of just in case there's something dodgy going there. Maybe we get some
Yeah, that
insurance.
makes sense. Cody Thompson, by the way, made his way back to the practice squad, so he's still around. He just won't be playing.
That's good to have. He's familiar with the program. Been here multiple years. Knows it
Mhm.
inside and out. They're probably going to run it inside and outside as far as receiving goes. So
Okay.
you hope you don't have to call on him, but it's good. All right.
And other than that, everything's kind of where we left it. Everything else on the roster is either trending in a good direction or staying where it was, which beats some of the stuff we had to do in the first week, maybe first couple weeks where we had to juggle a lot of stuff. Not as much juggling this week, so I'd say that's pretty good.
Absolutely. No, it looks like we're getting a little, Lord willing, I was asked about this today on one of my streams, which just is when are we going to have everything full health? When are we going to be at a point where we're not looking at the horizon line of when they're coming back? Well, it's with the way they're trending. Everybody keep your fingers crossed, toes crossed, anything you got to cross it. And by after hopefully the bye, we look this team coming back at basically as close to full strength as I think we could ask them to be at any point in time this season.
Right. The reality is, I think in the NFL, especially the modern NFL, you're never really going to be that healthy. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to have moments where the health is really good, but to expect there to just be some massive breakthrough where suddenly the injury report's completely clean, that's not very realistic.
Not in this modern NFL, Brendan. Everybody
Mm.
seems like everybody's in the infirmary unit on every NFL squad. Nobody seems to have kind of quite solved this. So even more so now than ever before.
Okay, so with all that being said, I think we can just swing right into this upcoming game on Monday night against the New York Football Giants. So let's big picture here, looking at the Giants, they've not gotten off to a good start this season. They've been blown out twice, and they needed a historic miracle to win the one game that they did win. They needed the biggest comeback they've had since World War II in order to just barely avoid that dreaded 0-3 record that would pretty much have them thinking about 2024 already. So it's not been a good start. And these were two teams that kind of entered the year on a similar plane. They were both expected to be bad last season, and they both made a surprise run to the postseason. So there was like a kind of a little bit of connection between the Seahawks and Giants, and it seems like they're headed in a not so good direction, and we might be headed in the right direction. So big picture, what are the things that the Giants did this offseason that you think have led to this disappointing start?
Well, I think they were trusting in general terms, trusting in the development coming from within first and foremost, and that they thought the young players would be coming forward, that they would just, the kid Evan Neal they took out of Alabama would come back, give you a full year of health out there on the inside. Your interior of your line with guys like Shane Lemieux and the center, I forget the kid's name who they took, but the center you and I have been very
Oh,
aware of.
Schmitz.
Schmitz, you took this year. You're hoping, okay, that kind of comes together with the offensive line and its maturation process. They already know what they've got with Andrew Thomas, who's a very, very good tackle out there. It hasn't gelled together on that offensive line. And I mean, that's at the kind of at the forefront of this. Last year, a lot of what they did was offensively speaking, Daboll came in there and he got creative in ways that was very similar to how he did with Josh Allen and the Bills, being that he simplified the things for the quarterbacks. He took a young quarterback. I'm going to simplify this stuff down the line for you. He could lean into the running game of Daniel Jones last year in that way, to like he could with Josh Allen, and make that a real component of how he simplified that approach. And this year, it's just not looking simplified for Daniel Jones. He's dropping back to pass, and he looks confused by everything he's seeing back there. And especially when it comes to this team and the way they start, Brendon, 6 points through through the first 3 halves of these games. 6 points in total through the first halves of all 3 football games total. That's not on average. That's 6 total points. So they've been absolutely ice cold in how they've started. But watching that game last week against the Niners are going to do this to a lot of quarterbacks. So it's kind of one of those hard things to kind of gather on when they don't have Saquon Barkley as well, which has been a problem. But I think that's when I look at it, they thought that was going to come together with like Darren Waller comes in there as a tight end addition and gives them a component of a guy, a middle of the field stretcher kind of guy. They haven't really found their lockstep there yet with Darren Waller and Daniel Jones finding that connection. Jalen Hyatt, supposed to be a big play, deep threat guy they took out of Tennessee. You and I liked him, but we both, okay, he's a one. We both, I think, even our best liking was like, well, he's going to really be at least a deep threat. That's really what you're going to lean on him for. They're not throwing him to the deep ball at all. You're not even giving him an opportunity. Now, the pass protection hasn't held up. That's what has to happen to make those 9 routes go. But I mean, come on, Brendon, like, aren't you one of those folks like I am, where it's like, you got the horse in the stable, let him go run. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Right?
they hit him with the one coming out of halftime against the Cardinals. That was the one time this year they really let him eat. But that was a case where like we're down 3 touchdowns and we haven't scored a point all season. It was almost like a Hail Mary as much as anything, it felt like. But yeah, it's not good.
No. And I think you gotta, it's like kicking and streaming for you to finally go to this. And then when you do, it's weird on their part. Like you had this plan and you're not really putting it into place. And I have to start with the offense, of course, because they have the offensive mind. This is how they're driven first and foremost. This is where your assets are placed into this team, especially with the $40 million contract you gave Daniel Jones. You said, okay, he's going to take a step forward with all of these extra assets we have. And if anything, he's regressing a little bit. And I would maintain, I think he's probably regressing, Brendon, because they're asking him to do a little bit more. The team comes up, Brendon, they start, hey, you're going to pay a little bit more. They're going to need you to play a little bit more, right? You don't get to just be the one read, I'll use my legs a lot and throw for 150 yards and that's good. No, you're going to need to now kind of somewhat carry the day for us on there, leaning onto him to do that, especially with Saquon down now. And that's out. I think defensively, and we'll get into the details of it, defensively, you got Martindale, who is fun, who's creative. Does he have all the parts he needs to make the defense work and run the way he wants it to? Specifically looking at last week, I'd love to know your opinion on this. I don't know if he's got the man cover corners on the outside to make this scheme work right now with the Giants. That would be one thing that I would wonder about just a little bit. But they're not running things right now where they're necessarily getting a lot of pressure, and we'll get into the kind of details of it, but it's certainly an underwhelming defense that's got a lot of things they brought in, a lot of guys that are there. Kayvon Thibodeaux, is he going to take a step forward? Lawrence, you have money to paid him this big time money. But they lost love. It was more about this being offensively driven this offseason by what they were trying to look to do, and hasn't taken.
Right. So yeah. So starting with that Giants offense, since most of the conversation was built around that, and that's been a side of the ball that's been very disappointing. They rank 31st in points and 28th in yards. They're turning the ball over, which is something they did a really good job avoiding last year. Now, some of it's kind of fluky, like that first game against Dallas when they were playing in this driving rainstorm and nobody could catch and nobody could hold onto the ball. Like, okay, that's kind of like weird stuff is going to happen, but they've had turnovers in their other games too. So all that progress that Daniel Jones made in not being a turnover machine starting to become undone a little bit. I think last year he only turned the ball over like 7 or 8 times. It was a really impressive turnaround for him, given the fact that's all he used to do. But starting to go back the other way with that. Their passing game is one of the worst in the league. Their running game is one of the worst in the league. There's really nothing going on here. Now, they have been missing Andrew Thomas, and they're going to get Andrew Thomas back potentially this week. He is limited in practice right now, which is an indicator that he will play. And that's obviously a big step in the right direction. But what's going on with Evan Neal? Because PFF swears he's regressing. They actually have him ranked as the second worst tackle in all of football right now. Like, what is this guy just not it? What do you think?
Can you validate for me that a lot of that's pass protection too, based on his struggles and what you're seeing
It's
there?
yeah, it's mostly pass protection. Run blocking's not really that good either, but his pass protection is the worst half of that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think I've seen from the tape of him, at least right now, which is that he's a big 6'7" guy. And those guys you worry about, having enough mobility to operate off there with some of the twitchier edge rusher guys that are out there in the league that you can go after. And even guys that aren't like top of the line edge rush kind of guys can still, come in there and give you issues. But certainly having, the Micah Parsons and Lawrence in week 1 is going to test that kind of guy out to see what do you got. Niners last week with Bosa, it's going to test you out to see what you got. And down Thomas as well to the other side, he starts failing, Thomas starts failing, and Jones starts to feel like he's under a bit of an onslaught and probably looks worse than he actually is at this moment because of that, quite frankly. He's not been the only one on that Giants line. I mean, Lemieux is another guy going back to, I remember you and I talking, I think back in the day about Lemieux at Oregon, and a guy that you want run blocking, but if I remember correctly, you don't want him pass blocking. If my history on that guy is correct as well. So you've got some issues here on the line, just in their basic structure and setup. But this is one of the reasons Neal goes from being potentially thought of as a left tackle type at the NFL level, where they go, I don't know if he's going to have the athleticism. You're going to have to kind of move him over to the right side. And now still, does he have enough even over at the right side? I think he'll settle in when it comes to the run blocking, especially once they get back a Barkley versus Breida.
Mhm.
But I do think it's the notable part of his game that remains, I think, a bit of a worry and a place we can attack.
Yeah. The Giants offensive line actually did a historically bad job protecting Daniel Jones in that Niners game. PFF said that like Daniel Jones was pressured on, I think it was 78% of his dropbacks, and he was getting pressured on an average of 2.2 seconds. It was about as bad as it gets for an offensive line protecting your quarterback.
And that's what the tape matches up. This one, this PFF will match to the tape a lot of times, and this is one place where it definitely does so, because that's what I saw last week. Where it's just like, man, you guys cannot even keep them back for a second. Niners, when they get up, the one thing that happened the one thing that's happened with them only getting 6 points in 3 games through the first 3 halves is that they're getting down in football games, and the Giants are not a team that's built offensively, even though they're kind of being now built a little bit more to the offense, carrying a little bit more of the day. They're built to play where we're like kind of close to being tied up / playing with a lead. They're not a team built to play from behind. And you start getting that line in a position where we now know you're going to have to pass block, and we can just, they don't want to let those teams get into pin your ears back mode, because it'll be trouble city. But in particular, I mean, getting the Niners and the Cowboy, we got to also win 3 games. That's 2 of the tougher draws to get to open a season. And this will, especially getting Thomas back, end up being something that will settle down, especially for this game. We're not going to be able to rely quite as much, I think, on that as they were able to get to through the first couple of contests. But it's been bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely been bad. So looking at the Giants receivers, it's kind of crazy. I feel like they did a lot in the offseason trying to finally give Daniel Jones some real receivers. And here they are kind of in the exact same spot I feel like they were in last year. Like their starting receivers are like Darius Slayton, I guess, is listed as the starter right now.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were going to try to do some work to get him down the depth chart so he would be like the number 4. So much for that. PFF has Isaiah Hodgins as their other wide receiver. I guess he's okay, but not really somebody you want starting. They've got Paris Campbell. And I remember you and me talking about Paris Campbell a little bit in the offseason. He's good, but like this is a receiving core that was supposed to be massively better than last year. And that was going to be the key to Daniel Jones playing better. But really, it seems like the only thing they did to improve their pass catching core is Darren Waller. And he's not exactly Travis Kelce out there. He can't make up for having such a bad receiver core.
No, and almost a 50% catch rate, which is what he's bringing to the table right now as your most targeted receiver of the bunch.
Right.
Paris Campbell's a guy, there's a reason the Colts let him go, and he just never developed. He was always a guy that you hope, as a coming out, it was out of Ohio State, a guy, get him the ball in space, bubble screen guy, fly sweep guy, but he's not been particularly strong with the ball in his hands. And the speed has not been quite as much a translation to the NFL as it was in college, where he looked burner fast. and he just hasn't been burner fast on the football field. Darius Slayton, I like you mentioned him because he's sort of taken over now the Sterling Shepard role, and Shepard's still on the team. Whereas to me, doesn't it always seem like the Giants have some useless receiver on their roster that just doesn't make a lot of sense as to why they're a fill-in, they're an NPC for the receiving core is like what it feels like, and they've always got one on the roster at any given one time. They're getting and they're always getting way too many snaps, Brendon. That's always the key with it, where it's always that kind of guy. The one guy to look for here that I think starts to come forward for them, who came back, I think, finally from an injury last week, was Wan'Dale Robinson, a guy who was part of what made Will Levis look really good in that final second to last year before he kind of dropped off in that final year before he went out. And I think all last year he was out to an injury or something. So just coming back last week, 4 catches on 5 targets. Didn't get a lot of yards with it, but he can be a third down chain mover for them. And that's a little bit of what they need right now. There's a lot of kind of third and outs and just the offense looking kind of dead, just out of it right from the start on some of these drives. So I think he's a guy that does help them, and it starts to fit a little bit more in now, where if you can start to get Jalen to work in his role on the outside as your deep threat, Wan'Dale to work as your chain mover, and I guess Slayton and Waller as your sort of intermediate guys. But this all comes back down to Jones and his decision-making and being able to run an offense that's not just the simplified, like we saw this when Daboll left the Buffalo Bills, right? Because at that point in time, the contract of the Bills quarterback, Josh Allen clicks in, and now you can see there was a little bit of dip in his performance initially there as Daboll left, because I think that's a little bit of what the Bills did there with Josh Allen, going, okay, you're now into this year of your years. You need to get this rolling. We need to ask you to do a little bit more, high volume of passing attack, and you got to make this run. And that's kind of the transition once you start paying these guys, I think, naturally to want that.
So it's not really a threatening wide receiver core, and Saquon is going to try to play in this game, but I listened to a little bit of what Daboll had to say earlier today, and he sounded not particularly optimistic. Like, he's trying, he's doing some individual drills, he's got a chance, but it didn't sound to me like Saquon was going to play. So it's going to be Matt Breida, and it is a pretty uninspiring skill position set for these Giants, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, Breida's kind of a guy who can get you on the outside for sure, and that's a place this defense, when they've given up some runs this year, I think to the outside has been where it's been mainly the issue. But he's not as much of your inside kind of running guy there. And this Giants team, when it's wanting to make its rushing attack work fully, it wants to hit you inside and outside, and it wants to be able to utilize the quarterback in the read option game. So part of that is having the inside run, because it's hard to run outside on a read option. I mean, you can kind of get to the outside, like an outside zone off read, but it's more easier just to run those read option runs for the running back, especially just right up the gut. So Breida is not that guy. He's a good back for what you ask him to do in the certain set role, but not on those kind of runs. And I think that makes them a lot more vulnerable offensively to us with not having that. They got to go out of their passing attack, which has been kind of a problem,
I mean, everything looks like it's going to be a problem for these Giants on offense. You've got a really bad offensive line. They might get Thomas back, but even if they get Thomas back, it's still bad. Michael Schmitz is not playing that well. He's a rookie. That's not unexpected, but not playing well. The guards are not very good. Neal's awful. Thomas, by the way, not that this means anything, but so far this year when he's played, he hasn't played that well. They don't have good receivers. They've got an okay tight end. Their quarterback isn't playing well. They don't have their star running back. Like, there's really not a lot to say about this Giants roster, both in terms of how they're playing and their perceived level of talent. Meanwhile, on the Seahawks side, it looks like we are going to get Reek Woolen back this week. He's full practice today. Would be very surprising if he didn't play on Sunday. Jamal Adams also making his triumphant return. Last time he played against Daniel Jones, by the way, he did the Lawrence Taylor thing where he rips the ball out and takes it back.
Just while he's still standing. Exactly. Daniel Jones is just standing there like he took his groceries. Like he's just leaving the store of the grocery store, and Jamal just took his bag of groceries and just ran away and just stood there looking at him.
Right. Looks like we're going to have Artie Burns and Julian Love on defense. Some question marks around the availability of Trey Brown, Kobe Bryant, Draymond Jones, maybe Darrell Taylor. We're going to have to find out a little bit later this week whether or not we have those guys. But the only thing that's going to be, I think, kind of semi-compelling here the Giants do have something that we have not had to deal with yet this season, a mobile quarterback, a quarterback who can use his legs. We thought we were going to have to deal with this against the Panthers, but of course we didn't. So this is a new dimension. We've stopped some running games so far this season. But I don't think that we played a team that depends on their quarterback so much for running the ball. So do you think this is something that can maybe test us in a different way than these other teams we played already?
Yes, because you have not only just a mobile quarterback, but one who is still in that mode of looking to run, especially in the Giants game in the first couple of drives with Daniel. I mean, the second that they got those edge rushers got too far upfield and not enough in more of a contained mode or not enough into more of a mush rush mode, and they lost it. They got upfield too far. Daniel would run right past him, and he'd go take what you could give him 5, 6, 7 yards and slide down. So, that's a part that, with especially the Hawks right now trying to work on their pass rush and get upfield and not always wanting to do it, from a blitz angle of things at the same point in time of stuff. So that's where do you, how do you find that balance? I mean, the Niners last week, kind of showed you hopefully on tape a method to do this, because there's a team that runs a wide 9 with their defensive line. Like you, they don't want to blitz a lot, yet they got a tremendous amount of pressure, and they still kept Daniel Jones pretty contained last week as far as his running ability, not giving him a lot of opportunities for that to be there for him. I'm sure Fred Ward was running some spy stuff too on the back end, but that to me is where you've got to find kind of defensively the right spot here. I think we can shut down the run without Barkley relatively well one way or another, especially considering where they're at. How do you keep Barkley from doing what some of the quarterbacks have done to you so far this year and sort of just peppering you? Because he's another quarterback like these ones we talk about, Brendon, who if you do, he's not quite as like in that mode of you a guy like in Dalton, where I think Dalton's a much smarter, wouldn't you say, more aware quarterback in his understanding of the game to process.
Yeah, I mean, Dalton is only here because he's still really smart, because he's been around a while. He's been a really good quarterback at times. That's his thing. He's a very smart quarterback. It's not his arm, it's not his legs, it's not anything like that. It's just his brain.
I mean it like this though, like the type of quarterback that's given Hawks defenses fits in the last few years. That's this kind of, Colt McCoy, Jimmy Garoppolo, Teddy Bridgewater. He's not that guy, and that he's more of a toolsy, but doesn't see everything clear on the field guy. And I think those guys are limited, but they see everything on the field clear. And that's where hopefully you can maybe get him a little bit at times where he's not going to be able to just take the easy free thing that's there in front of him and pick you apart. But that is the rub to me, is that ability to rush on that. Okay, I don't see it clear, but now I've got the legs to still get away and go get 7 or 8 yards in the first down, even though I missaw what I was processing on the field.
Yeah, I agree with that. We've seen in the past that he is capable of being very turnover prone. He wasn't last year. He's gotten better as the years have gone on, but he is somebody who will throw the ball to the other team a few times if you put him in that situation. So it's not like, the kind of thing about the Andy Daltons of the world is that they're pretty good at avoiding that.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what makes it so frustrating.
100%. They stay within themselves, and this guy he'll let it rip. He'll let it loose. He's got an arm that can make the throws too. When he does let it rip, he just doesn't. His processing power, going through his reads, staying under control in the pocket, not being too jumpy. It's like a combo of all those things. One of them kind of rears their head play to play with him when it goes bad.
So at the end of the day, do you feel like we're going to, this defense against the Lions offense, what do you want to see?
Well, I think you simplified it down really quickly. I mean, this is just to take care of business and be the better roster, like you said. I think you boiled it down that in a fashion that's the right way. And let me give you the 2 stats that I think even it signify this best. The points for this team for the Giants is right now 14.3 on the season. That means his offense is scoring 14 points a game. That's 31st in the NFL. The defense is allowing 32.7 points a game. That's 30th in the NFL. So offensively and defensively, they don't score many points and they give up a whole bunch of points. And yeah, you can go a little bit to the injury stuff, but hey, we've been injured too, and we're getting healthier for this game too, and even much more healthier, I think, than they are. And so this is a game where you are flat out better. How do you attack? What is to me, the method approach? Well, first off, the Niners showed you last week, offensively speaking, you've got to utilize your running game. McCaffrey had an 8-yard carry, that wasn't his average, but it just seemed like every time he got the ball, there was 8 yards to be had. Not a 4-yard, 8-yard carry, where they're just huge holes being opened up with the rushing attack in there against this Giants front, which is odd for me, Brendon, because you got Lawrence in there, man. Explain this one to me. You got Lawrence in there. You've got Leonard Williams, who was even flashing at times in that Niners game. Ashawn Robinson down in there. They've invested in Kayvon Thibodeaux down this line, and he's supposed to be a guy supposed to be active for them down there. Why aren't they playing better? I don't like their linebacker core very much. I'll say that much, but I mean, I would certainly have expected them to play better in this role, but that's a place to hit them right off the top, is in that with the rushing attack to me.
Right. So I think I pretty much agree with all of that. I mean, I don't think the Giants are. I don't think there's any way they're as bad as they've looked over the first 3 games.
Agreed. Yeah.
But there are some real problems here that I think are real, at least for now. Like, I think Michael Schmitz will be good eventually, but maybe he's just not good yet. I think that Evan Neal, well, maybe he has to bump inside at some point and try to do the DJ Fluker thing.
Yeah, maybe 6'7". It's hard at that size.
Yeah. But I think he'll be good eventually. But right now, and I know DeBoll is a really good quarterback, or Daboll, excuse me, but a really good coach. But I don't feel like he's like a Sean McVay type, somebody who can just kind of eat Pete's lunch with a bad roster.
I don't think so either. I think he's still fighting his footing as a head coach. He's a first-time head coach too, and it's some guys I know with McVay, he did show, I can do it, and some guys are like that. Some guys it takes them a little bit of time to find their footing, and I think he is, and I think he's still trying to make it work with a guy like Daniel Jones, who I don't know if we're sure if Daniel Jones is really the guy that can make this happen, even if things are going right, even if the line, I will say right now, he's doing it with a line that isn't bad. But, this is the thing that we got to appreciate about Geno Smith's recent performance, is that he's had it with a bad line, and he's not looked this like supremely diminished person that can't even make anything happen. You saw a little bit of this from Jordan Love in this game with Green Bay. Green Bay comes to this game against the Detroit Lions at home. And yeah, they made a little bit of a mounted comeback, but through the first big part of that game, down a couple of offensive linemen, and he just looks like, I can't even function as a quarterback, throwing interceptions and bad passes and can't move the drive. And meanwhile, you got a guy like our guy here in Geno who's actually able to make it move. And so is Daniel, in your opinion, is Daniel Jones, diminished with that so much? Is that he just can't handle having these poor play of offensive line / backup blindside protector out? Or is he what he is? Is he like the thing everybody liked to say about Geno, Brendon, we got to really apply with Daniel Jones, is that, yeah, I both hate it. And he is what he is, as this, limited $40 million quarterback.
And I don't know. I look at this receiver core, and I still say this is not an NFL caliber receiver core. If you got him better receivers, it would probably be a different story. But at the same time, I've seen other quarterbacks succeed with receiver cores that I didn't think were all that good, like Tannehill. I remember, I think this was last year, was able to have some success after they traded A.J. Brown and had maybe the worst receivers in the league. And he was still okay. He wasn't great or anything, but you can still play competently in those circumstances if you know what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, you make an argument that their receiving core is pretty close to what the Rams have so far this year. Even the Lions and what they've had so far this year. They don't have Jamison Williams so far, and they're doing what they're doing without that. So I think there's a lot of teams you could find some productivity where you wouldn't just fall completely apart. And that's where I can't come back to the issue of just being a line problem for Daniel Jones in itself. But you're right about the scrambling. That can be a thing where he comes out of a game with 80 or 90 yards and you're going, we let him get us with that, and that's where you got to be under control in your pass rush and make sure you got the protections back there.
All right. Seahawks Gaming, thank you for the $1.99. Lions were a coin flip away from going 0-4 with lock. I don't know what with lock means, but I understand the first part of this. I'm a little confused about the with lock aspect here.
What do you think he was with luck? Do you think he meant with luck? L-U-C-K rather than lock?
Yeah. Okay. I can go with that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a little bit. I think we definitely took that game from them. That was a win. You went into their house, and there wasn't something you could blame on that game of like a ball that bounced the weird direction, or it was off by an inch. Like a guy got away from an inch. Like the game got pretty well determined, I think, one way or another, on how that played out. Yeah. So but hey, they look great. They came in there and they smacked the Packers in the mouth, and they took it right to them in their house. And you don't usually do that in Lambeau.
Yeah. One day, a scientist is going to have to do some kind of study to make sense of how this Seahawks team can get blown out at home by the Rams and then 7 days later go into Detroit and beat this Lions team. But that's kind of the thing that's driving me crazy about the modern NFL. It feels like there's very little consistency from week to week. Like you'll
Mm.
just have some random result out of nowhere that doesn't make any sense and never makes any sense. Like, oh, this Jets team that started 0-14 just beat the playoff bound Rams by 2 scores. What?
I think it's a real thing that we wouldn't like to think that's out there, Brendan, because these guys are paid millions of dollars and there are 17 games in a season, and it's you have like, how can you have this happen? But I think that you do get into certain points of the schedule and times in the schedule, and it could, for in our case, I guess it was the Rams game, where the team just doesn't take its opponent seriously. And it's like, if you go in and you're going to fight somebody in combat and you walk in and you go, I get this guy, versus you go in and you've got the psycho face on and you're ready to pull off people's fingers with that mentality. Like one's going to have a little bit more chance of success. The other has a little bit more chance of getting your butt knocked out. And I think that that's what's happened at times, is that we got our butt knocked out because we walked in on games like that, or like the Cowboys did this last week with the Cardinals, where it's going to be human nature at times, I guess, when you look at some of these rosters opposite you and you're like, Puka Nuka, give me a break, or in the Cowboys case, Josh Dobbs. Josh Dobbs
Mm-hmm.
ain't doing nothing against us. He ain't doing nothing against us. And that just starts to, even if it's just slight, starts to permeate a little bit. It like takes over like a virus through the week, I bet. And just starts to, by the end, everybody's kind of like sleepwalk mode, But human nature, I guess, as much as anything else.
Yeah, like I remember in the early OOs, the Brady Patriots and the Manning Colts, seemed like they just showed up almost every week. It was so rare when they would no-show a game and lose a stupid game. Even if they no-showed, they'd still win at the end. Like I
Yeah.
remember the great teams of that era, like the Steelers, the first few years Ben was there. It's like they didn't no-show and lose stupid games. They would occasionally play below their standard, but they'd usually still win.
Agreed. And I think that that's, you're talking about something that's about the type of cultures that get created that take on that responsibility in a way that's not normal in the NFL, and that you can try to foster, but it also has to come from players accepting that responsibility of ownership and leadership. And that requires them then to have that kind of like making sure not only I'm ready to go for this game, but that my fellow guy next to me is ready to go for this game too, that I'm not letting my guy next to me slouch. And, that's where we get to the various places of leaders and guys that push other guys, and how much you get the collective to buy in that manner. And that's the hard part, I think, in the modern NFL, Brendan, especially because distractions are so heavy. And there's so many other things for the modern player to go. Not that there hasn't always been distractions, but now more than ever, I think it's there at the forefront. So it's getting in. I don't think like what you could apply 20 years ago to get that, like they did, Brendan, like what Belichick and Dungy before him were applying. I don't know if you could apply the modern era with the kids in the same manner with what they've
Mhm.
got out there. And so
Yeah.
it's a tough. And how do you get it? I don't know. And there's probably not as much a consensus on this one.
Yeah, maybe there's like a shortage of superstars in the modern NFL that you as a teammate really do not want to let that guy down. Like maybe we just need more quarterbacks out there that are such strong leaders. Nobody lets them down because they're like, if I let that guy down, he's going to kill me.
Yeah,
That's what they always said about Jordan, right? Like
that's right.
his teammates like felt like, look, if I let this guy down ever, if I ever don't do my job, he is going to have me assassinated. So I got to show up every day.
Yeah,
Maybe it's something like that. I don't know, but there just doesn't seem to be any consistency in the modern NFL compared to where it used to be.
I agree. And I think it's harder for maybe quarterbacks, or maybe that there's not as many guys built like that to take that kind of, because it is again that thing with Jordan that, there's a price to be paid to be in that way too, right? Like you're a nice guy to everybody's a quarterback, everybody loves you over. It's one thing, but sometimes, as like Jordan kind of intimated about in that last dance, it's like I got to be an a-hole to get these guys where I need them to be. And I'm not happy. It's not proud that I got to do that, but that's what's required if I'm going to put championships on. And, afterwards, 20 years down the line, these guys are going to talk about me and they're going to say in one breath, you got me a championship. But then out of the other side of their mouth, they're going to be like, yeah, but he was also an a-hole. It's like, well, you are putting 2 and 2 together though, right? And some guys can take that mantle of leadership where I'm gonna be a leader, but I want to be the nice guy and have everybody like me. Others will take that mantleship of leadership and say, I'll be that leader. I'll push this thing through. You're absolutely right on it coming from the quarterback and then coming from a quarterback and a strong head coach. That thing's going to resonate more strongly on down to the players below. So, when Belichick and Brady are double teaming on that one and their message is the same, unifying, it's going to be a lot harder for those guys, to slouch out, week to week. And that team got the AFC East for 20 years. And that was just like walking through,
Nice.
Youngstown State every other week in that division at times.
Yeah, very true. Let's see here. Mehar Khan, thank you for the $1.99. You guys steal my boyfriend from me on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Okay. Well, I like that. I think that's
Yeah.
good. So I'm gonna take that as a compliment. I think it's a positive.
Mahara, I would say that we're going to stop doing it in the future, but I'd be lying to you. We're going to keep taking him. Sorry. He's ours for the season.
Let's see here. Blitz 2K5. Thank you for the member for 17 months over on Brandon's side, I believe. Who does BNB expect to show up most on D this coming week? Well, since we spent the first part of the show talking about the Giants offense, let's go ahead and address this now before we move on to the other side. What do you think?
What do I expect? Who does we expect to show up most on D this upcoming week? I think that you're going to see the Giants probably try to lean a little bit more into the running game, as that's been something that with losing the lead as early and often as they have, that's put them in a position to eventually have to throw too much to where they have no balance offensively, and they don't have a passer in Daniel Jones who could do that. So they want to avoid falling back, and I think to that pitfall into this game. And one way to do that is run a little bit more early often than they have. So I would expect Bobby Wagner and Brooks to be a factor early on in how they stop the run as we start out the game. As the game goes along, how you hold up in man coverage, and specifically, I think making it hard on the Giants. Don't let this be the game that Jalen Hyatt goes off. Make them this. I know I often say I get mad about the dinking and dunking and the quarterbacks that can go up the field like that can eat you up that way. But we were just talking about when it comes to Daniel Jones, he's not programmed like those kind of quarterbacks are programmed. He's not programmed like even a Brock Purdy is. It's a different kind of guy in the way you can kind of, because he is still so young and kind of confused by what he's seeing. That you can, if you want to try to force him to be patient, eventually you will find him making a mistake, because he can get erratic at the worst of times all of a sudden and out of left field a little bit. And so I would lean in that defensively as far as playing just pretty much under control. But I think early on the linebacker is going to play factor. By later on, it's going to be the secondary. I think we can get a little bit of a lead here. And then it's about, can you keep the top on the defense? And then can you stay tied up in coverage at the same point in time? And that'll be just a particular, I think that's indeed, Brendon, the story up until this point, right? Like we've allowed over 300 yards here for the first 3 weeks. And, are you going to let them do that to you again? And I know I'm saying I don't want to let you I'm okay on this one getting dinked and dunked a little bit more, but you'd be nice if you could find a little bit of an answer for both here, if it was possible.
Yeah. I think there's immense potential for, it looks like we're going to have both, by the way, Woolen and Witherspoon in this game.
Woo!
I think there's immense potential for those guys to just lock down on the outside against these very, to use a little bit of a familiar word for those older Seahawks fans, pedestrian wideouts.
That's right. But real pedestrian wideouts, not like in a, mocking them, but in just, no, really, like they should be just off the streets.
Like there may not be a heck of a lot going on the outside for the Giants in this game. So they probably will try to run the ball a lot, probably with Jones and probably with Breida as well. And it could be one of those days where Wagner and Brooks, one of them could have like a 15, 16 tackle day, even without them being on the field the whole game.
I could see it, man. I really could, because it's one where I think the Giants are really going to try to keep this game close so they don't get stuck behind the 8 ball like they have so often here early on this year. And it's made it hard, I think, on them offensively to get things done that way. And they're not built to do that. Some offenses are built to do it. They're not built to do that.
All right. Let's see here. The Snail, thank you for the $2. The Prez is getting 5 sacks and a touchdown on Monday.
Let's go, Snail.
I mean, it's first time he's played in that stadium since the trade. right?
That's true. And the Jets and Giants do share that stadium, don't they?
I
So
believe they do.
yeah, maybe there's some special memories on him coming in there. He gets a little bit of that old Jets juice cooking through the veins
Yeah.
and makes it happen. I'd love to see it.
Yeah. Just going to go ahead and say this now and hopefully not regret it later. Any concern from you about having Jamal's first game back be on that MetLife turf that snatches so many souls?
I think eventually you got to take him out of the bubble wrap. And you've waited a couple extra weeks here, I think, already with this. I think he's been chomping at the bit in Carroll's ear to get on the field based on kind of just reading Coach Carroll's kind of tenor on this. And I think that eventually you just got to let it rip. And you as a team has decided this year that we're not going to cut him. We're not going to save that contract to make more money to help us out in other places. Instead, we're going to ride with him this year. And you got to put that car out on the open road, Brendon. Put that pedal down to the metal and see if it's going to take. And there's a lot of bad turfs out there in the NFL this upcoming season we're going to be playing on. And so, to me, just including our own. I mean, I don't know that our own is all that much better at home either. I mean, maybe it is, but it's historically not been one of the better ones either.
Yeah, I think
So,
it's a little worse than average. I've read an article about this.
yeah. So I just think when it comes down to it, if he's ready to roll and he's good to go, you take him out and you let him roll. This is the make or break a year for Prez. I think we both agree on that. And I think you got to give it a go. What about you?
I think it's the right thing to do, but given the fact that we have this bye week right after this game as well, I think some people are at least thinking like, did we have to do it now? And MetLife, it just ruined Aaron Rodgers. The
I get it.
last couple of Monday night games have involved devastating, life-altering injuries because it was Aaron Rodgers, Nick Chubb, and I think there was one in the what was it? There was there was another one as well in there. I can't remember who it was now, but there have been like 3 devastating injuries on Monday Night Football this year.
Jeez, freaking me
Yeah,
out, man. I mean, it's definitely scary, but it's to me almost equally scary across the board for all our guys coming in this game with that.
yeah,
It just feels like if it's your number, it's your number. I mean, shoot, watching the Knights game with Brian Branch, you have him out there on grass, and it's in September, so it's not super cold out there in Green Bay. And that guy goes to block him, and it almost looked like he looked like he was going to come back, but it looked like his Achilles popped. You're just like, it's just like that's all it takes. Sometimes, it's like the most innocuous of moves, and the guy is just down reaching for his ankle, and you're going, okay, just like when it's your time, it's your time. When the sniper shoots you from the grass, Brendon, you're, you're going
yeah,
down.
yeah. That's true. All right, Brady, thank you for the $1.99. Are we taking it on Monday Night Football? Seahawks with the W. Well, not to spoil the end of the show here, not to give everything away, but I'm feeling pretty good about Monday night right now.
I am as well. I think that the team the Giants have been this year is not the team you're going to get this week. And there's something to be said, like like the Lions saw against us. We gave the Lions this kind of energy of when, you've been kind of embarrassed, just got embarrassed on a national stage the previous week. You're scuttling a bit. You're looking to find your footing for the season. You're going to come out with a certain energy, collectively speaking, with a certain smell of both desperation and try hard energy. And that combination of energies can be kind of potent when you're going up against it as another team, like we talked about with the whole fighting and metaphor I was trying to make earlier. You come in and that team's in that way and you're not going to match the energy. It can go a little bit sideways on it, but I do think we're going to be playing hot. I think Jamal out there with Witherspoon, I think their energy defensively is going to be cooking. Woolen back into the frame of mind as well. I love where our rushing attack is, the balance of our offense. I think, do we get Cross back or not this week?
Earlier this week, Carroll sounded pretty confident we were going to get Cross back. Today, he sounded somewhat less confident to me, but all we know for sure is that he did not practice today. That's all we know for sure. So
let's call it
I don't know.
Probably not. So you're still, I mean, well, offensively speaking, that's still then now Thibodeaux out there, and it's you've got some still guys that can give you some problems as it works up. So I think you're going to get the best effort. I do think we can kind of get out of this one. It might be a squeak without it one. It might be a 3-4 point win, but I do think that this is a game that you certainly are just a little bit better set in how you're playing, how you're looking so far this year. I think too, there's a little bit of don't you think feel like Giants were a little bit overhyped. Like people got up on that bandwagon a little bit fast. I think not that they're a bad team, but
Right.
just that here they're ready to go out there and cook.
Yeah, I agree. I think the most concerning thing about playing this Giants team right now is the fact that they kind of have to win this game because if they lose, they're playing at Miami and at Buffalo the next 2
Mm,
weeks. So that is a 1-5 team if they
yeah.
lose on Monday, basically. So you're going to get their best shot.
Oh yeah.
Now, I said the same thing about Carolina. I think you're going to get their best shot because if they go to 0-3, it's basically over.
Yeah.
And I think you did get a pretty decent shot from them, and you just won anyway. So you can overcome that. But I'm not expecting the Giants team that showed up in the first half against the Cardinals to be the team we play.
Yeah. Like you said with that, the Carolina took us pretty far, and we need our home fan base on that one to help in that win. And you're not going to have that at your disposal going into this weekend in New York. I think it can't be undersold that you're going to get a really strong effort from this ball club, whether or not you're more talented right now, whether or not you're more healthier right now. They're going to match. They're going to put that energy to a certain spot. And a big part of us winning this game beyond tactical wise X's and O is meeting that energy level, meeting where they're at in that space.
Okay, let's see here. Who died? Thank you for the $1.99. And he also had another $1.99. We will beat the 49ers. Let's fly. We equals them.
Like you who died.
Hmm.
Let's go with let's go. Let's get them 49ers.
Hmm. Yeah. That's a show for another day, though. That's a little down the line here.
And thank God for that, because that team is scary right now.
Right. But we've been around long enough to know that teams cool off eventually.
Yeah,
Like
that's why
it's not possible for a team to sustain their maximum level of output for 5 months. It doesn't happen.
I wouldn't think so, man. I'm
Yeah,
counting on it as well. So I'm
right.
glad that those games are down the road, though, not now, because I just wouldn't. Let's get a little let's get a little healthier. Let the young guys play a little bit more. We'll figure that out, and then we'll get back around to getting to Niners.
Okay, so now let's go over this other side of the ball with the Giants, their defense, which
Mhm.
I think maybe has been a bigger letdown than even their offense because this was the side of the ball that has there's some stuff on this side of the ball. And there's some stuff that should be a lot more than it is so far. They do have a nice defensive line with Dexter Lawrence, who's been a PFF darling so far this year, along with Leonard Williams. He's also been excellently graded there, but after that, it gets bad. It seems like it seems like their third best player on defense so far might be Isaiah Simmons. So good trade by them, I guess. But they're not getting good play out of anybody in the secondary except for maybe McKinney. I like McKinney. I think he's pretty good. But other than that, the linebackers, not seeing a heck of a lot there. Um, Thibodeaux in particular seems like he's headed in a pretty bad direction here as a former top 10 pick. So there's a lot to not like on this side of the ball. So defensively, big picture, what are you concerned about?
Their size, they've got good size up front for what they bring, and that can that can cause some problems for kind of an offense that wants to hit you from a mobile based aspect of things. The Niners overcame it last week, and that's where maybe some of those holes came from. Is you just got a defense a little slower and able to really get them with that. I like Micah McFadden. I thought he was impressive last week. I don't know if he's a good player or well graded, but he was, I thought, flashing in that game as one of the few defenders last week against the Niners, showing up. I think they thought they were getting more out of Bobby Oakrey from the Colts when they brought him over, and I just don't think he's probably given them a lot. Azeez Ojulari, if I'm not mistaken, has been kind of beat up. Like, he had a good first year, then had lost a year to
Yeah,
injury.
limited in practice today, by the way. So he'll probably
Okay.
play, but he has not played that much this year.
He's got a hamstring injury, and so I mean he's been a part that him missing has been, I think, a big issue for them because they don't really have the third guy that they can go to in that as that edge rush guy. So it's like it was hopefully him and Thibodeaux that made it run, and then he's not in there because they're going to hope with their blitz program that they can get the rest done probably from a pass rush front of things. Deontay Banks, you and I looked a lot at him. We liked him a lot out of Maryland, but he was a guy that I don't know if I would have said, okay, I'm going to have that guy be my number one corner to start things off here once we get to the season. So him out there running as much as he is the number one guy, and he's out there kind of gaslighting DK. I don't know if you saw his comment today, but
I missed that. What's up?
he said, what did he say? Something about he's going to be a superhero on this. Let's see. What did he say? Deontay Banks on DK. What did he say? Said I can't wait to show off my superpower against DK Metcalf. I thought that's
Yeah,
always
it's not
good.
that bad. I mean, that's not that bad. I don't
No,
have any
but I
problem
bet you
with that.
DK is gonna read it as something more not
Yeah,
so bad. You know what I mean? Like I if I'm gonna
I
be playing
agree.
DK the next week, I'm shutting the hell up. I'm nice. I'm him shaking hands. I'm asking him how the family is. You know what I'm saying? That's the energy I'm coming at. So, but yeah, I think the other problem with this defense beyond just where the personnel is, it's pretty good personnel overall. Zijo Jalari, I think, changes a little bit of that pass rush when he's out there and somewhat healthy. But it's also with Wink Martindale about the blitz aspect of things. And something that's very odd with him, and I hate the 5-man pressure packages personally. We've talked a little bit about that in recent weeks, not from our Hawks now use, but some other teams like to use this a lot more. It just doesn't accomplish a lot. If you've got an Aaron Donald and you go with a 5-man blitz, you're creating then a singled up opportunity for Donald. So it makes sense when you got a guy like that. And with the Giants, I think what they're thinking of is that they do this in this case because it then gives Lawrence a singled opportunity. But what they do with this defense, and what I saw with the Niners, especially last week, that was just so odd about it, is that they go 5-man pressure front to the front, and then they go cover 2 back. So, Brendon, you got, 5 here, 2 to the back, which leaves you 4 left as far as the rest of this whole field to cover up. And it just leaves too many massive gaping holes in the zone. If you're going to blitz, bring the 6-man, bring the extra, get overload the pass protection so that there's a free rusher, or at least the threat of a free rusher. Just you can't bring to me those 5-man fronts. Just they don't have. You could do it occasionally, but the way they leaned on it last week was like constant, and it was just getting crushed.
Yeah, there was actually a stat after that Thursday night game where technically the Giants blitzed on some suicidally high rate. It
Yeah,
was like 83%, but it was completely ineffective, and Purdy picked it apart. And it's the thing you're saying, right? It's not an effective blitz. It's not enough.
it's the thing people tell me about Purdy, the Niner fans especially, they get in my ear about Purdy and they say, he's been blitzed. He's been blitzed, because that's my thing with Purdy is make him uncomfortable, squeeze down on the zones. And that's what they come back to. And they keep saying that to me over and over and over again. And it's like, but like you just said, hold on. It's more complicated than that. They're going to count a 5-man pressure package as a blitz. Anything more than 4 will be considered a blitz by the way that they're charting those numbers. I'm not talking about that with Purdy. I'm not talking about, I know my offensive line is going to be able to pick up man for man here. And the thing with that, the most special reason on this, Brendon, is because Purdy's got such a commitment to getting the ball out of his hands so fast that if you've got a matchup like a Donald, that's going to get freed up, he's still getting the ball out of his hands quick enough for it not to really impact him to the point that you're going to affect him with that pass rush. You're going to make him uneasy. It's the extra guy you bring up. It's when you overload things that you start getting, I've seen it with Purdy, that you start to actually get him a little bit dicey. But, the Giants were so scared about the back end getting hit, even without, Ayuk in that game, where you just had Deebo Samuel and Kittle, but they were scared to death. They drop in that cover 2 every time. And it's just like, that's not what I'm talking about with Purdy, right? You can see why that bothers me, because like you're still dropping the cover 2 depth with the safeties, which is still a place Purdy's really not going to try to push the ball to. And I know he had a couple of throws in that game that he completed, but he had a couple other throws that almost got picked when he threw to that depth too
Oh
in
yeah.
that game.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I said it the night of that game. I remember we did a show and I said, Purdy is just fixing to have that 6 interception game. It's coming. I
Yeah,
feel like it's coming with
agreed.
the way he's getting away with some stuff here. But yeah, I also, while we're here, I should point out that the Giants blitzed Geno a lot last year when we played them.
Mm.
It was like 59% of the dropbacks, and Geno beat it up. Geno played great against the blitz last year. So my one concern about this game on offense is potentially no Cross, no Lucas, potentially no Haynes. That's 3 of your starting 5 offensive linemen. Obviously, Geno's shown he's really good pre-snap at directing players and getting them where they need to be and identifying where the blitz is coming from. But if we've got 3 backups on there on the offensive line, are they going to be prepared? Are they going to be here? Like Bradford's a rookie. Bradford's a rookie. Forsyth, we know that he just doesn't move all that. He's got problems. He's got some problems in his game.
Sure.
Curhan, more of a run blocker. Are these guys going to be capable of picking up these blitzes that Wink will probably send, even if Geno's able to point them out properly before the snap?
Well, one of the reasons you were so effective last year, and the reason you're going to still remain effective against this blitz, is for the aforementioned reasons you gave. Yes, Gino being good against the blitz and understanding how to get the ball out of his hands very fast when combating the blitz. But I think as well, this Wink Martindale scheme is best to attack more of your 11 personnel. And more of the times when there's a 3 wide look and then you come after it with that. I think when you have a team that they go up against that has more of 2 tight end and 3 tight end looks, 12 and 13 personnel, I think that that's where that starts to put Martinsdale defense in a bind. And my reason being is, okay, we want to go with our 6-man blitz now. We're going to go with more of the 5-man. We're going to put our guys out of the island. So we're going to put a guy on the edge where Tyler Lockett runs a sluggo route. And that guy better hold up on that sluggo route or he gets beat. Tyler beats him last game. In fact, beat him twice over the top. Tyler had one ball go off his head. Remember, he had a rare drop on a deep ball where he was wide open as well. The issue comes in, though, I think you can see where I'm going with this, is that if the Seahawks drop Max Protect back, what happens? You suddenly have 2, 3 extra blockers in there. And Gino's had a lot of success with this through these last 2 weeks with when they've gone to this, where we haven't always had the 5, 6 guys running routes, Brendon, where you've got this layer of the Great Wall of China in front of him and the amount of guys that he has in front of him. And now you've got a hat for a hat, man for a man. And now those guys that have speed like DK that can get open, or a guy like Jackson that can get open in short spaces, become really deadly at that point. So this is why we combated so well last year was Geno smarts, but then the tight ends, which I know we had that commitment to last year as well because we didn't have the slot at that time. So we were just committed to it for different reasons. This year, I think we'll be committed to it as we've been for the pass protections it gives you, the max protect it gives you at times.
Right. And I want to see a lot of pistol as well because, again, it just seems like teams don't really know how to handle it.
Amen. I want every different iteration of 2 tight ends to his back, 2 tight ends to his side. I want 3 tight ends. We haven't seen that look yet, Brendon. Give me the 3 tight ends stacked like a line behind Gino.
Like some kind of like, what is that? Like the fake it's almost like the Statue of Liberty play almost. You line up a bunch of people and then they all go this way except one guy takes the ball, goes that way.
Totally. Like Gino can turn back and just fake turn back and then throw to the first guy or something. I don't know. You get super creative with it though.
Let's see here. Seahawks Gaming, thank you for the $4.99. The Giants don't have the personnel to run a blitz scheme. Since when did Debo beat us deep? LOL. Oh yeah, Debo did catch that one deep ball on him. Debo kind of beat him up, generally speaking, in that game.
Debo was a man in that game. He was on definitely his like in the zone mode. He didn't really beat him over the top. It was a trust throw. And the corner didn't look for the ball. It wasn't like there was a lot of separation, and Purdy with his pop gun arm definitely couldn't push it to the back of the end zone. So, he just slowed down and he outplayed the guy on the ball. But, that's not Debo's game, is really getting open over the top. He hasn't done that a whole hell of a lot in his career.
Yeah. I mean, last year they were able to run Wink Martindale's scheme pretty good. They had a decent defense last year. Like is Julian Love really? I know Julian Love was really good last year for them, but is he a linchpin to that degree? Because who else did they lose?
Yeah, I think that certainly hurts them a little bit. I mean, you've got a guy like Deonte Banks as a corner out there, rookie corner. He's kind of, I think, getting his lumps a little bit. I don't think like Ashawn Robinson has probably given them the returns back that they thought. There's like a combination of deals here. I'd reckon to guess. Let's also look at their schedule really quickly again from last year on what was their. Let me just take a quick glance at this, Brendon, because I've got a theory on this as well.
They lost to Philly twice. They lost to Dallas twice.
So you got, yeah. So let's go down. So, okay, there's some interesting wins there. I got to give them credit. There's some good wins there last year. So, you're kind of right. There wasn't any crazy offenses. Tennessee, Carolina, Chicago, Green Bay without Aaron Rodgers. Jacksonville was okay. Houston was a bad offense.
Baltimore, that was the game where Lamar just decided he didn't feel like winning. So the game's over and he just throws it right to, I think, Thibodeaux.
Yeah.
Like that was a good win, but they never should have won that game.
Yeah. There is a part of me just feels like that defense didn't play as really, it wasn't that good, and it had some good performances, but there's maybe a little more smoke and mirrors in my field to it just a little bit. Now, it's still got some talent on it. And I want to say, I think we're going to get, I think, a better defensive effort from them this year than we did last year in this game. So last year you were able to kind of run a bit and you were able to pass a bit. But if they want to blitz heavy, I think this is into Geno's wheelhouse at that point. I think when
Right.
you start putting him, he's a guy that's shown you that he can see where it's coming. He can change to the play. He can hit his hot route. I also think this is a really good chance for this game to be the one where JSN comes out and gives you the, 5, 6 catches up around 100 yards, a little bit more of the chain mover where Geno's able to find him because I think he's just knocking on the door.
Yeah, I agree. So speaking of the talent on this Giants defense, one guy I want to kind of zoom in on here, like we did with Evan Neal, would be Kayvon Thibodeaux.
Mm.
Because is this guy the second coming of Yannick Ngakwe, a completely incompetent run defender? Because so far, that's basically what PFF has had to say about him. They think he's as atrocious a run defender as you will find. He's like Daryl Taylor after 3 drinks. He's like what do you think is going on there? Because there's been some serious bust noise around Thibodeaux from the New York media lately. Are you buying it?
I mean, it's to me, I get the Deion Jordan vibes kind of a bit. If you want to go back, to a guy that Oregon, similar kind of guy coming out, it was just the freakazoid that you thought was going to, really develop and had all the physical traits that you look for, but just it didn't all come together for him. And there was some worry with Thibodeaux coming out. Did he love football? And this is where I would come to this. I don't know if he does or doesn't. I'm not saying I don't know on this guy's heart and where he is with it, but I will say that if there's questions about a guy like that that's really, really talented, the thing that ends up holding them back from developing and becoming that player then becomes the lack of the work ethic, because they can go into college and still be that 5-star guy and get by on just the natural talent, and they're good. If to get that spot of being legit at the pro level, though, you've got to have the work ethic to do it. And guy talking about his brand coming out of college and seemingly kind of having some of that stuff where it's like, bro, just worry about being a football player. Worry about that first and foremost. You can get around to that stuff later on. And so I wonder about that with him a little bit, Brendon. But yeah, he can't set the edge. He gets collapsed down. Doesn't show a lot of play strength out there. Doesn't show, like Daryl Taylor, a lot of awareness in space. A back can be running right past his left shoulder, seemingly within the, just do the just put your just stick the arm out, just at least grab an arm on him. I mean, I just at least hold him up a little bit, slow him down. But he'll just be completely locked up with 2 arms. You often see him, watch for it on Monday night. You just often see him caught up where he doesn't even get the single arm off. He gets locked up and he stays locked up. So grade well earned. Why? I don't know. Lack of fire would be my guess.
Yeah, looking at this Giants team, they're pretty light on veterans, right? Maybe it was the wrong team for him to go to.
Yeah, he needed to go to a locker room where it would have been established with guys. He needed guys like the Ray Lewis type mentality guys in the locker room to make sure this kid was going to do what he needed to do. And I mean, we've heard reportedly that the Seahawks weren't going to even draft him, that they had taken him off their board. And I think that is a indicative. I don't know if it's the truth or not. That comes from Dave Wyman, but it's indicative of, I think, who has a connection to John Schneider. So I think there's something to that, by the way, in him saying that. But that's indicative of what we're talking about with this, Brendon, was that background check. Why is Jalen Carter not a Seahawk? Why is Kayvon Thibodeaux? Because background checks matter, and they're going to let it carry weight, and not just a small amount of weight. They want guys that love football. They want talented guys too. They want all that stuff, but they give me guys that love ball. I don't want the guy that just loves being a football player. There's a difference. And I really wonder if that's maybe not the case with him. It's a little bit like the Justin Fields thing, right? Justin Fields, uber talented. Why is he not taking a step this year right now? Come back to that phrase that we talked about at draft time that was referenced to him. Remember the phrase, Brendon? Remember the phrase with Justin Fields?
What was it? Oh man, I can't remember now. It's been too long.
First in and last out the building, or for last in, first out the building.
Oh, that's what they said about McNabb when he went to Minnesota. You almost never hear that.
No,
that's a phrase you almost never hear.
No,
yeah,
exactly. And if you hear that, especially about a quarterback, it's like warning. Take heed.
I mean, Justin Fields' real problem is that the forward pass was invented in 1906.
It's true. He needs some of that wing T action back in the pros.
Yeah, if he was around 125 years ago, he would have been great. It's
money, baby.
But yeah, I mean, there was an article written on ESPN. I think it was ESPN earlier this year, talking about the whole Jalen Carter thing, and what it basically said was that Philly took him because they felt like they had the veterans
Mhm.
to keep him in check and get the best out of him. And that's also why Seattle took McDowell in 2017. They
Yeah.
felt like they had the veterans to get the best out of him at that time, but they don't feel like they have that now. So they don't do stuff like that. It makes sense.
Makes complete sense. I would agree with their assessment of it. You're in year 2 of a rebuild. You just drafted a whole metric ton of young, talented players. The last thing you want to bring into the group is a volatile aspect of things that can send the group astray or create cliques in the locker room. And I think that that's an intelligent approach by a front office that understands this kind of stuff very, very acutely.
Let's see here. Jeffrey A. Thistle, thank you for the $5 super chat. Watched old footage of our Super Bowl year, seeing 8 Hawks around the ball at all times on both sides, people lane blocks 20 yards downfield. So fun. It sure was.
It's always going to be great with that old footage you can go back to. It's something I enjoy doing often, especially because I can do it often for the name of the channel, looking to find clips and stuff from the old. But it's always great to go back and check out the old 2012, 13, 14 tape. Go back to any regular season game, and yeah, you're going to get some good, fun football to watch. That is very unique.
Right. So what do you think of Adoree Jackson? He's kind of the only thing in the secondary that's playing decently right now. And actually this year he's been a little bit down, but what do you think of Adoree Jackson as a player?
Adoree's a guy that I've liked for a long time, going back to USC. You know, he's never really been able to quite find, it seems like, a long term place, even though he seems to play pretty consistently throughout the course of his career. He's never a star guy, but back even at Tennessee, it was always pretty solid guy. I think there's times where last year you saw him getting aligned on the outside by New York, and I don't understand that about him because when he was drafted, when he was coming out for the draft, I saw him very firmly as a slot only guy. That where he should be. Don't put him on the outside. And New York's even done that to him at times. Like I said, last year against DK, you had him out there going against DK at 5'11", 185. I think that's not the proper utilization of him. But if you put him into the slot, I think he can still be pretty useful in that area of things. He's probably maybe not what he was back in the day, but I've always kind of liked Adoree's game going back to USC. I always thought he could be, as we move into the slots, becoming more important players in that very specified role. But he could be one of those guys that kind of ascended a little bit in that spot and has been a pretty good. He's been above average, not below Pro Bowl, above average for the most part through most of his career, I think, when put into that role.
Like that's the one guy that I wonder if he could find a way to lock up on Metcalf or Lockett or something like that and free up Martindale to send his crazy blitzes at us. That would be the one thing that I think could hold us up a little bit more than anything else in this game. But other than that, I look at this Giants defense and I think they're better than how they've looked so far this season. I don't think they're actually as bad. There is some fluky stuff has happened to them. Let's be real here.
Mm-hmm.
There's been some fluky stuff, like the blocked field goal against the Cowboys. That's obviously nothing to do with the defense. They had the pick six. But at the end of the day, as long as your interior offensive line is ready for Dexter and Big Cat, there's not really too much to be intimidated by here.
No, I think you trust, if you had a quarterback, you worried a little bit more on how they deal with the blitz. This might be a bit more cumbersome of a matchup in its face, but I think this is one place DK has shown to be very good at that. That's a spot in particular that he's concentrated. And, I think he's even noted Phillip Rivers has helped his game a lot out when he went through there with San Diego as a backup back in the day. And so I trust in him to be able to deal with that okay. And in fact, I think that the Giants in doing that leaves them with the nature by which at least they've been running their blitzes recently. I think that will leave them vulnerable because I think if you're doing that against the Niners and you're scared about the Niners taking you apart over the top with Brock Purdy in his arm and without Brandon Ayuk on the field and with only Deebo Samuel being the only guy out there that could do that potentially to you, then why would you not also believe that with DK and Tyler out on the field as well? I think that's where they're going to run. I think you got short and intermediate routes that now become available. And Gino's able at that point to have a little bit more picking apart. It's the key to me with us is, can we get to the edges in the run game? and utilize as much as we have early on this season so far. I mean, whether he's even started on inside runs to get outside, I want to challenge the team defense of this Giants team. Show me you've got the speed and the quickness to stay with our backs and keep limit the big runs with a guy like Walker and then tackle a guy like Charbonnet. I want to see them challenged in that way because I don't think that they're going to hold up to the challenge.
Yeah, according to PFF, by the way, I think like 80% of K9's runs so far this year have been in zone-based blocking.
Mm-hmm.
And the other 20% have been gap-based, which I think is great. I love
Yeah.
that. I think that's awesome.
I don't have any issues with the Walker usage at this point. I think it frankly has been pretty close to perfect in what I would say that they've done with him. So it's not been putting him into hammering A gap runs all day, and that's what you're just like. It's been nice. It's been a nice mix so far.
All right, so just to round up the injury stuff on the offensive side of the ball, Cross did not practice, Haynes did not practice. I don't know if we're going to have either of those guys or not right now. It's hard to say. Metcalf didn't practice, but I have no concern about that. He's going to play. Like this is a pain tolerance thing more than he's actually injured and can't play thing.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I don't think he misses a primetime game, one of the few ones you have this year.
Mm-hmm. Disley practiced today, which is a great sign. And he's been good this year, so that's not a small thing.
No, I want to use my 3 tight ends, and I don't want to use that guy we just signed. I want all my 3 good tight ends on the field for this game.
Mm-hmm. And Ojulari did practice a little bit today, but still not sure if he's going to play or not. That's going to be interesting to monitor in the coming couple of days here. And that's really about it. So I think we broke it all down pretty good. Pick up the blitzes, and you should be good.
Yeah, I think Bradford's going to be okay in there, by the way. Just I've gone back. I'm doing a show on Sunday looking at the snaps of Bradford a bit more closer. And I've got a good like 15 of them that I've kind of cut up to put in there. But man, he went up against, I know we talked a little bit about this on even yet on Wednesday or Tuesday on this, Brendon, but he really did such a good job on Derek Brown. And that gives me so much faith going forward because, Lawrence is another one. He's kind of big, just he'll try to overwhelm me in power and strength. And Bradford can kind of, meet that. You can do that with Leonard Williams too. I'm not saying he's going to dominate the matchup, but his performance was better than his PFF score last year, in my opinion, watching the tape.
Yeah. I was very impressed with Bradford in that game. I am aware of the fact that this is going to be a really tough challenge, but he's I think at the very least a lot of Seahawks fans would be very excited to see him in this game. I think there's some hype around him now.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree with you on
that. Let's see here. Feed me more Seahawks. Thank you for the $2. Bradford played great in the run game. I think he was better in the pass than the run, but you see the potential for him to be a really good right guard in this league.
I mean, for me on the tape too, there was maybe a couple pass sets in there that he got through, but it was to me solid all the way down the line in this game. It was certainly probably maybe at its most impressive in the ground game, but I got to say the passing wasn't that far off and I know Brown's not pass rush is not his forte, but Brown was giving him everything he could. He was hand fighting him. He was giving him power. He was trying to go to rip moves. And Bradford was giving him none of it. And Brett wasn't like Bradford was like struggling to barely hold on for dear life on these reps. It's like he's drawing a draw. He's pulling that out time and time again. And to do that again in this game from where he was on his tape with LSU, from where he was on his tape in preseason, I'm getting a lot more confidence from Bradford from this last game. Those snaps were very impressive. And I've gone back now and watched them a couple of times because I'm trying to put the cuts together for this show I'm going to do on Sunday. So.
All right. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about him. I am, and I want to say this is really impressive. This is a guy who didn't even play that much in college. I think he had like 17 starts at LSU.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's barely played. The rough tape, you understood. He's a young kid. I mean, I didn't expect him to play as well. That's why I'm kind of noting a bit of much, Brendon, just because I didn't expect him to play this good this last week like he did. I expect there to be some highlights where he pushes a guy's head into the turf and tries to see if he can squish him. But I didn't think it was going to be like snap in and snap out. You're seeing him consistently get his job done. You're seeing some dominant reps in there. You're not seeing him have those moments of complete whiffs or just not getting, the play going to hell and it all being on his back.
Mm-hmm. So I think all we really need to do at this point, Giant special teams. Graham Gano's a great kicker. Graham Gano's good.
Yeah.
right?
Oh, he can get it done. Yeah. They do have a
Yeah,
kick block, and we've got a kick block this year. So look for a place to where, especially for our special teams that can maybe get an edge. Maybe that's a place in this game that you can get after them in a bit.
so I think all we really need now is a final score.
Final score. Ooh, doggies. All right. Well, you're hosting this one tonight, so you got to start it out.
Little bit concerned about their interior defensive line versus our interior offensive line. That's like the one real strength of this team so far for the Giants through 3 games. But I think we can do enough. I think we'll be able to do enough. And I'm going to say that our defense really shuts down that Giants offense that really hasn't done anything right outside of, what was it, like 25 minutes against the Cardinals? There was
That's
like a
right.
25-minute run of competency. And other than that, it's been dreadful. So I'm going to show some faith there. I'm going to say we win 20-10.
20-10. I like it. I see a little bit more points being scored in this game overall. I think Daniel Jones and company were going to play a little bit better than they've been on that, but not a lot better. So I'm going to go with Seahawks at 27 points in this game. And I'll go with a Giants team at 27-20 in this game, come out of it by a touchdown. But I think the fact that Saquon's not playing in this game, you had Saquon last year, and we got you guys by a good amount. I think we won that by like 10 points or something. You kind of were running away with that one. And so I think that you're, in certain respects, you're hungrier as a Giants team this year coming into it versus traveling on the road to our stadium last year, mid-game, probably a game that they weren't exactly going to be probably as hyped up for as this week, Brendon. But I still think that is enough for you to carry the day. That you've got enough talent. You got guys come back. Jamal's going to provide I think a shot in the arm on this defense. Witherspoon has shown that he's provided a real helpful part. And we get Woolen back, man. We get some Woolen and Witherspoon action going on both sides at once. Wow, what a game we're going to get to watch with those two. And what kind of coverages we run with that? What's your over under on 4 blitzes for Jamal in this game?
Well, Pete said that there are no limitations, so I'm going to go over.
Over on the 4. Let's go.
He called Jamal Mr. Unlimited this week, which has to be another shot.
Of course he did.
Yeah.
Pete's taking his chill, his subtle digs, and he isn't.
Yeah. He deserves it. I guess he deserves it.
I can't blame Pete. I can't blame Pete on that. Okay. Get it, Pete. But good. Yeah, I'd love to see it. If you're out there, let him loose, man. Like I said, if you're going to put that car on the road, don't keep it under 35. I want to see some Sammy Hagar in this. I can't drive 65.
And the Mariners just walked it off, by the way. So
Let's
we've got some
go.
good things going on here. Still alive, barely. Not by much, but
hey,
hanging in there.
At least it's alive. Better than being out. So that's good to hear.
So I think we kind of wrapped everything up. I think that's everything that needs to be discussed. This Giants team, relatively straightforward of a team, I feel like. I have a pretty good understanding. I've watched 2 of their games this year in primetime. They've had 2 primetime games, so I've got to watch them more than most other teams. And that Cardinals game, I actually watched the replay of on NFL Network because it was such an amazing comeback. They replayed it a couple times. So I've seen them a lot this year, and I feel like I have a decent handle of what's going on there. Now, I know they're better than what they've shown so far, but I also feel like it's a very limited team. I
agree with you. That's my feeling on it as well. I just think it's a team that you should be able to get this point where they're at, where you're at. And you got to stay sound and bring that energy, meet that energy they're going to bring, because you're getting their best punch. And if you can show them that you're right there with that same energy, then you'll outlast them, then you'll out talent them, then you'll win. But you're going to have to kind of, that first thing where they're going to come out, they're going to be juiced to the nines trying to reclaim this season. Because if not, like you said, they're very much looking at a year that is going to go to hell in a handbag and go very, very fast.
All right. So all that's left to do is play the game. All that's left to do is get the win. And I'll tell you, we both had the Seahawks at 3-1 after 4 games. And I always say there's nothing you can do to undo a loss. Like, the loss is just there. You can't undo the loss, but you can cover it up, right? And if you win this game, you're starting to cover up what happened in week 1. You're starting to get back to the point where it's like, okay, we're back on this train. The train is back on the tracks that we thought it was going to be on. We can still do something good this season. And all you got to do is win this very winnable game on Monday night.
That's all you got to do, man. You get to 3-1, you get through the bye, and we could be looking at a team that is at its healthiest as it's coming out the bye that it's been all season, at its fullest strength, at 3-1, and in a position to create some real room within the schedule to then set the stage for them to get to that place we're looking to get this year, which is hopefully we're okay. I'd love to get back in the playoffs, but hopefully get to actually a true contender state, Brendon.
Okay. So thank you everybody for showing up tonight. We had about 310 people here for most of the night. Brendon, thank you for coming out and doing this with me this week yet again. Third day in a row.
Let's go. We're cooking, bro.
And we will be back next week to wrap up the Giants game, win, lose, or draw. We will talk about whatever it is that happens out there. And we hope you guys will join us then. And we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for the night and get out of here. But, I mean, right before a primetime game, this is especially important, I think, right? You're going into that big market New York stadium, brand new MetLife Stadium. I think this is more important than it is even some other weeks. So got to hit them with it before we get out, right?
Got to let them know this is prime time. We got the eyes of the nation upon them. Let's stamp this game out. Let's put a message to the rest of the country. Let's put them on notice. Hawks aren't just here to be sort of a backdoor playoff team. We ain't going to be your backdoor man this year. No.
All
we're
right.
coming through the front.
Okay. All right, so let's get this win. Let's get to 3-1. Let's cruise into the bye week feeling good about ourselves. And let's say it, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.